Yuri didn't end up returning to the club. Around 5 minutes after Monica spoke to me, Yuri came bursting back through the club door, having finished whatever it was Monica asked of her. Monica didn't seem fazed by this, so I can only assume she wasn't too invested in setting me up for me and Yuri up. Or maybe she didn't have too high of hopes for me. Natsuki, at some point between Yuri leaving and Sayori's return, left the club silently. So, with no sign of Yuri, I grabbed my bags and waved goodbye to Monica as Sayori and I began the walk home. Stepping into the hallway, Sayori begins one of our usual meaningless conversations.
I'm glad you didn't upset Natsuki today. I was really worried you'd say something to her and make her cry or leave the club.
Why are you acting like I was the aggressor? You were there. She came at me first. If anyone's going to cry, it'll be me.
I know that, but you tend to be... what's the word? Revenge hungry?
Vengeful. But I'm pretty sure the word you're looking for is petty. And maybe I was in the past, but I'd like to think I've mellowed out a lot recently. Sayori's hesitation to answer speaks volumes for her opinion of me. What's with that hesitation?
You locked me in the living room with a mouse because I bought too much pizza.
That's a lighter sentence than you would have gotten in court.
You're going to sue me over pizza?
Maybe. I'll have to talk to my lawyers about the logistics.
Well, if I had to say one thing's changed about you, it's that you're quieter.
Quieter?
Yeah, in 10th grade you used to spout lines like...
Sayori takes a moment to clear her throat, and she lightly pushes a bit of her hair in front of her right eye, imitating my hairstyle.
High school is a cesspool of betrayal and hypocrisy. Everyone is just looking to backstab each other and get higher in the social food chain, all while singing the praises of friendship and camaraderie. You know, stuff like that.
It sounds less cool when you're the one saying it.
It never sounded cool.
I refuse to believe that. There's no way I used to sound as annoying as that. Well, I still feel that way, so I guess I haven't really changed. I just don't voice thoughts like that anymore.
How come? Did you suddenly realize how embarrassing it is?
No, you're doing a good job. You're showing me that right now. It's just that I take a moment to think over my words, but finding it hard to exactly describe my feelings, and end up settling with a half-assed answer. I stopped caring.
Oh, that feels sort of sad somehow.
Sayori only gives a short response.
So you're getting into reading?
She seems to feel a bit awkward with where the conversation has drifted and hastily tries to change the topic. I read plenty before. Oh, sorry, that said plentifully.
But manga doesn't count, right?
That's a narrow-minded viewpoint, Sayori, and I can't believe you'd be so intolerant. But to answer your question, it's alright. I've only read our assigned books since the club began, though. Well, I'll have to see if it's really for me.
You seem to be pretty enthusiastic about it. That other bag of yours is filled with books.
Other bag? I don't have a... As Sayori mentions this other bag, I look down to realize that I'm carrying 2 bags. Whose is... Pulling it closer to my face, I quickly recognize the cover of The Great Gatsby on top. Oops, this is Yuri's. I must have grabbed it without realizing. Come to think of it, it did say I grabbed my bags back there. Oh, getting meta here. Hold on, I need to go put this back. Sayori nods and the two of us make our way back to the literature club. Reaching the club room, I attempt to slide open the door, but am stopped by the door's lock. Huh?
What's up?
Sayori looks over my shoulder to try and see what's stopping me. It's locked. I attempt to look through the door's windows and grab Monica's attention, but find the room to be completely empty. Why did Monica lock up and leave so quickly? Actually, how did she do it so quickly?
Maybe, since you took her stuff, Monica thought Yuri took her bags with her and decided to leave.
I guess, but she was right there when Yuri left. Wouldn't she have noticed that Yuri didn't bring her belongings? Plus, why leave so quickly? Wasn't she busy? Once again, I simply have to shrug off Monica's weird behavior. I guess I'll go try and find Yuri. I'll look past Sayori and start to make my way towards the stairs in the direction Yuri turned. You can go home without me. This will probably take a while. I hardly make it a step before Sayori calls after me.
Wait!
I turn around immediately, Sayori's sudden change in volume having startled me. She seems uncomfortable, as if she wasn't expecting herself to be so loud, and I can't help but notice a somewhat desperate expression in her eyes. Sayori plays around with her fingers nervously before meekly speaking up.
I'll help too.
Alright. You can go look on this floor. I'm going to head downstairs to see if she's around there. Sayori opens her mouth as if to say more, but quickly closes it and simply nods before turning around and running down the hallway. I wonder what that was about. Everyone's acting a little odd today. First Yuri, then Monika, and now even Sayori. The only one who's in character is Natsuki, and her character sucks. As I make my way downstairs to begin my search, I ruminate over a certain detail Sayori seems to miss. Monika's stuff is still in the room. My first guess is the library. I briefly remember Yuri's warning about the students looking for me, but realize they've probably all gone home already. Making it to the room, I open the door and find the library to be completely deserted, aside from a steel wire basket labeled Returns. That was my only real guess. I step inside and take a quick look around, hoping to find Yuri hiding in some tucked away corner. Of course, that proves fruitless. I start racking my brain, trying to remember some small detail about Yuri that could give me a clue. I slide down dejectedly against the wall. Unsurprisingly, a few days of interactions isn't enough to go off of. The best idea that comes to mind is to call her name and hope she responds. Yuri? Damn, I'm not sure what I really expected. With no sign of her, I stand back up and stretch, feeling exhausted from the day's events. It's when I take a glance out the window that I notice a distinct blob of purple slip around the corner of the school. That has to be her. But what is she doing outside? I know what other people are doing back behind the school, but would she also? There's just no way. With my interest piqued, I let curiosity lead me out of the library and through the school's back exit. I can words, I'm okay. I walk along the side of the school's building, kicking the various pebbles on the ground aside. As I slowly walk, a feeling of intrusion creeps up on me, and just as I'm about to turn the corner, my feet stop moving. I'm overwhelmed with a desire to turn back. What am I so anxious about? It's not like she's doing anything back here, right? Another wave of anxiety overcomes me as I mentally verbalize that thought. I get the feeling that as soon as I turn this corner, I'll cross some sort of filter. And with that, I'll leave some sort of safe space that I can't return to. But I can't just stand here forever. I take a deep breath and take a step, swinging my body to the left before I can hesitate further. Looking ahead, I find a relatively small alcove in the school's outer wall. The walls of various other rooms surround the indentation on all but one side, forming a room of sorts. It's in the middle of this indentation that I find Yuri sat down against the wall, staring down at something in her lap. She twists the object, looking at it with a mindless sort of intrigue. I step towards her, crushing grass and rustling the pebbles that litter the ground. The sound attracts Yuri's attention. He looks up towards me with a mindless sort of stare. She continues to stare me down as I slowly approach her. Yo. I slightly lift up my hand to greet her. Her only response is a small nod of acknowledgement and an unwavering stare down. Her gaze seems unfocused, like she's not looking at me but the general space I occupy. What are you doing back here?
Not much, just thinking. Why are you here?
She subtly covers up the object in her lap. I'm only able to make out a faint glint from a stray sunbeam shining down on it. You left your bag in the club room. Monika already locked up for the day, so I figured I should hand this to you myself. I extend my hand downwards towards Yuri. She slowly reaches out and grabs a hold of the bag strap. She then carefully shifts through the items inside until finding whatever it is she wanted. Satisfied, she softly settles it next to her.
Thank you.
No problem. Despite having no other reason to stick around, I find myself lingering in front of Yuri. So, what are you thinking about? In the end, my own curiosity gets the better of me.
What Monika was talking about. Or more like what she actually means.
Huh? Yuri's words seem to be jumbled. In hindsight, that's fairly normal, but there's a mindlessness to her words this time. Yuri stutters or stops herself halfway through sentences, but she's usually able to articulate her thoughts fully when she takes a moment. However, there's no hint of those anxious characteristics, no nervous glancing, awkward hand gestures, or bubbling embarrassment. Only a faraway expression and an oddly relaxed tone. And she was marginally more composed today than usual, but this is almost the exact opposite of her usual self. Oh, you mean about Sayori being worried about me? She was definitely overreacting. You were pretty concerned too, but Sayori was on a whole other...
Not exactly. About what we said to her beforehand is one word, not two. Remember what we told Monica before we started talking about our books? We told her she didn't have to act so formal in front of us, that a school club doesn't need that level of professionalism. But she looked as if she didn't hear us. She completely disregarded what we said, like the idea alone wasn't worth considering. It's strange how attached she is to that reliable President Act.
Maybe she is real strict about etiquette during meetings?
The same girl who openly teases you is worried about etiquette.
Okay, well...
I guess that conversation about Sayori was interesting too, since Monica was staring at you the whole time.
What?
Then, when she heard you mention Sayori, she looked annoyed. Less furious and more inconvenienced. Inconvenienced.
Oh, you almost had it. The I needs to go... over... Wait. E-N-I-E-N. Is that how that's supposed to go?
Like when you set up dominoes and someone knocks them over before you do.
That's an oddly specific example.
It's the most fitting. Do you know of a better way to describe that sort of childish annoyance?
Not off the top of my head, no. Yuri's words feel sharp, as if she's cutting me with each retort. It makes answering her questions difficult. But just like earlier, there's no anger in her voice. It makes the entire experience feel very surreal.
She interests me and worries me at the same time. I feel as if I'm being played and don't even know it.
You seem to think Monica's some sort of Machiavellian schemer.
I do. Is that odd?
No. Actually, I think it's oddly in character for her.
For some reason, I feel she's really good at that sort of subtle manipulation. Perhaps it's just the feeling she gives away. Or perhaps it's because she's so insistent about faking it that I can't help but wonder where the boundary of reality and illusion lies.
Faking it?
Her personality. I don't think Natsuki and Sayori have noticed it, but you can tell how empty her mannerisms are sometimes. It's like she's smiling out of courtesy, or as some sort of tactical move, rather than using them to express any real emotion. It's very unsettling how consistent she is with emotions. But that means each of her smiles looks the exact same, which make it very obvious that she's faking it. I'm sure most people would notice by paying enough attention.
Well, there goes the small bit of pride I had in being perceptive.
I suppose I can't chastise her too much, though. It's not as if she's someone's special case, and chastise is not spelled with a Z. It's natural to find it hard to be honest with yourself, so everyone's playing an act to some extent. Monica just happens to be especially good at using her mask.
A mask, huh?
You know, one of those personalities people put on around others. Personas, to use Jungian terms.
I knew what you meant. I just didn't... I shut myself up before I get ahead of myself. Luckily, Yuri didn't seem to be paying attention.
People use them all the time, be it to impress someone or just to feel a sense of belonging. The mask is an armor one casts around their true selves. If everyone knew what I'm really like, they'd hate me. Thoughts like that are why everyone tries so hard with their acts, even if they don't particularly care for the other party. When the alternative is ostracism, of course people would jump at the easiest way to have some sense of security. Monica is just someone whose mask happens to make her popular. So I can't blame her. In fact, I kind of admire it. Someone like me isn't capable of something that amazing.
Something about Yuri's praise for Monica doesn't sit right with me. A dissatisfied feeling settles in my chest upon hearing such nonchalant acceptance. And a familiar frustration eats away at me, slowly. Yuri finally seems to remember my presence, staring at me like she had before.
What about you?
Huh?
What do you think?
The question is ambiguous. I consider responding, but hesitate. Maybe because I didn't feel comfortable sharing, or maybe because I was still thinking about me and Sayori's conversation from earlier. Regardless of the reason, I keep my mouth shut. I find my eyes wandering to my feet, and I pretend to watch the subtle movements of the grass.
I see. I was hoping we could be a bit more honest with each other.
A passive aggression is phrased with no passive aggression. She seems to say that last line mostly to herself.
I'm feeling a little nervous. I must be. Secretary.
Huh? Yuri sighs and lowers her hands slowly into the space between her legs, retrieving the object previously hidden to me. Its metallic lining shines a ray of light into my eyes, keeping me from seeing the object for a second longer.
Excuse me for this.
As my eyes adjusted, I felt a pit form in the bottom of my stomach. I found myself unable to look away, unable to think, unable to speak. All I could do was swallow an uncomfortable emotion that surged throughout my body. As I fought to regain control of my body, an iconic sound emanated from Yuri's hand. Watching Yuri raise the lighter to the underside of or rather the idea of a word, I felt as if I was on the verge of oxygen, but I didn't want to make the final connection. I couldn't remember the feeling of it. I can't read this nearly as fast as it's going. So I guess I just have to pause the video, dear viewer, and I will be too when I rewatch it on my own. Disillusionment. So anyway, have you ever wondered what it feels like to die? How awful and scary it must feel? What sort of thoughts would run through your panicked mind as it desperately denies its own demise? In my opinion, the closest feeling you can experience to death while alive is disillusionment. Yeah, this familiar word for a familiar scenario. The same feeling that pierces your heart as you watch a cute kitten feast and tear into a dead rat. The same hopelessness that overtakes you as you become suddenly conscious of your own inevitable demise. The same sadness that fills you the first time your little sibling, once always eager for your attention, glares at you for the first time. The same sadness that overwhelms you as your former lover holds the hands of another, blushing timidly the whole time, or the whole while. In that moment, you die. The you that had once wandered through life, oblivious to whatever horrible circumstance befell the current you, they are dead. And you are all that remains of them, a husk, something emptier than it was before. But the key difference between disillusionment and death is that you have to keep living. It's not a final frenzy of your mind for survival, but another part of being alive. There's no escape from the dread of your mind, no peaceful slumber or deafening void, no nirvana or hell. Just another day, waiting for you wake up and face it. Do you know what's harder than giving up? Trying again. So what's harder than dying? Waking up tomorrow.